In this video, I'll be revealing the one harsh mistake that over 750 retirees warn against making after age 60, a mistake that has nothing to do really with market crashes or healthcare costs. In over 15 years as an advisor, I've spoken to well over 750 retirees about regrets and retirement do-overs, and nearly all of them said the same thing. They wish they'd focused a little bit less on just the sheer size of their nest egg and instead were more intentional about what they wanted that money to do for them each month and match that to specific things in their life. If you're new to the channel, my name's Justin. I own a financial planning firm in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, where we help retirees all across the country make smart financial decisions and help them avoid making big mistakes. That's exactly why I'm making today's video, to expose the planning mistake that creates retirement anxiety and portfolio depletion, even for retirees with substantial savings. So let's dig right into it. Now, before we dive in, I do want to say this. And working directly with hundreds of retirees face-to-face, reviewing thousands of income plans, I've seen exactly how this mistake slowly erodes confidence, and it isn't theoretical. I've watched people with 2 million, 4 million, even 10 million saved still feel financially unsafe, all because they were focusing on the wrong thing. So the mistake is believing that having more savings automatically creates a better retirement, when in reality, it's not the size of the savings or the account balances that create the confidence. It's knowing how to convert those savings into reliable income that aligns with your lifestyle costs and is matched to your expenses. And so retirees will obsess endlessly over that number. And if you know what your quote number is, you know what I'm talking about, whether it's 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, believing the size of the nest egg equals safety. But without knowing what that money needs to produce every month, that number can actually become a source of stress instead of peace. And I think most people think the number is safety, but in actual practice, I've seen that number become the actual anxiety trigger. People checking balances constantly, feeling like, oh, I've dropped from under 2 million, or I dropped from under this benchmark and now I feel stressed about it. And but they can't articulate that monthly income needed to sustain the life that they want. And this can lead to underspending from fear or overspending from false confidence. We don't want either of those outcomes. So I'd say large balances without a strategy create a false sense of security. So retirement confidence comes more from clarity, not just account size. I think the financial industry itself is more focused on growing the pile, but in working with real people, I've seen that without a clear strategy, that size of the pile and the account getting bigger and bigger doesn't do a whole lot to improve confidence. All that same stress and anxiety is still there. And so even if someone breaks free from that magic retirement number, they still don't know what that number actually is supposed to turn into as far as what they can spend each month. And this is where a lot of retirees suddenly realize that they're unprepared, because that missing income strategy in that hole there kind of hits harder emotionally. And so let's talk about the missing income strategy that can leave a lot of retirees financially lost. So most retirees enter retirement with little to no framework for how income is going to show up monthly, quarterly, annually. They've spent 30 to 40 years mastering accumulation and zero mastering distribution. So a lot of retirees will default to random withdrawals or emotionally reactive decisions based on market news. And I think distribution is a learned skill. It's not an automatic extension of accumulation. So I think the financial industry assumes that those who are really good at saving money are going to automatically know the ins and outs of distribution strategy, but it absolutely does not. Those are two separate things. And I find that this is one of the biggest how does this part work type questions I get. It's usually, Justin, what accounts should I be withdrawing from? In what order? For how long? How do I know when to switch? What about the taxes? What's the tax efficiency for each account? Should we be withholding X amount of taxes? Should we be doing Roth conversions? All those things are wrapped up under distribution strategy. I'd also add that market corrections aren't always what breaks retirement plans. Unstructured and undisciplined withdrawals do. And without predictable cash flow, people will respond emotionally to market volatility. And those emotional decisions are what can create permanent damage. So systematic income planning is what can help stabilize that behavioral element there. And retirees with cash flow clarity experience a lot more confidence during those tough markets. And I'd say this is one reason why when a plan is being designed, the best thing to look at is you want to start with that overall, top-down approach, meaning what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to spend on? How much are you going to need to spend every month? And then the portfolio objective and income plan becomes a lot easier instead of what I think a lot of industry resources recommend or talk about is starting the other way around. They start with investment first and then trying to match that. But I think the proper approach is starting with the plan first. What's the plan? How much are we going to need? What do you want to spend on? What's important? And then that can highlight the investment and withdrawal path. It's a lot simpler that way. But even once retirees finally understand that income, not wealth, is the more predictable driver, the old habits can still end up sabotaging them because you can't spend confidently in retirement when your brain is still wired from 40 years of accumulation conditioning. So let's talk about the accumulation trap that can prevent retirement spending confidence. This is a big one. So accumulation can become part of your whole identity. For 30, 40 years, retirees are rewarded for significant saving, building, contributing, watching those balances grow. It feels good, feels outstanding. And then overnight, retirement flips all the rules on you. So now the behavior that made you successful must now reverse. And then withdrawals feel like loss. It feels like you're doing something wrong. It doesn't feel like it's purposeful. So I would say trying to get comfortable with this part is not going to be accomplished by charts and math alone. So making that emotional planning pivot needs to be part of the whole process and part of the framework. But I'd also add that this reluctance is why people who have more than enough will still underspend and hoard. And I've shared some great research before. I always like to bring this up because I think this paper is fantastic, that highlights that a lot of retirees, even with those of substantial means, will still not spend, especially if it's coming from their savings. If it's coming from a guaranteed income source, though, like a pension, Social Security, RMD even, they'll still be much more likely to spend it instead of having to feel like they're dipping into their savings to spend it. So this is a widely acknowledged phenomenon. I think this is just part of our human nature. But I think in this case, retirees, it's not about protecting money. It's about protecting that familiarity. So, and that's the hard part. We don't want you to die with unused capacity and money that you could have spent enjoying your life, enjoying time with your family. And so here's the key on this. So you're not going to defeat this accumulation trap by forcing yourself to spend more, just like forcing yourself to eat a vegetable you don't like. I never liked Brussels sprouts growing up. So the more I was forced to eat them, the less I liked them. I still won't touch them. So it's kind of the same thing with trying to force yourself to spend more. You defeat that urge by giving your money a job again, just like during accumulation. But now the job is lifestyle, not just growth for growth's sake. And that shift only becomes possible when we flip retirement planning upside down and we start with lifestyle first. So let's take a look at the lifestyle planning approach that can prevent a lot of these mistakes. So if you focus on lifestyle first, it flips the framework. So you're defining the life you want to live first, and then we engineer the portfolio and income to support that. Only then do savings numbers have real meaning. And I think this is where mainstream advice is backwards, starting with savings targets or investment portfolios first, and then try to retrofit lifestyle. And I think that's why a lot of retirees will still feel off even when they have big balances. And of course, making sure that you have your expenses aligned and accurate, that's where a lot of retirees get stuck too, because income alone means nothing unless we're going to define the expenses that it needs to support. So the mistake isn't always just lack of income, it's lack of clarity about what that income needs to or is desired to fund. And that's the part that I think gets missed a lot. And then once we anchor lifestyle, the question then becomes, what income can we absolutely count on no matter what? Because confidence doesn't just come from a spreadsheet. Confidence comes from knowing that a lot of the essentials are covered. And so let's talk about the guaranteed income foundation that can create a lot more spending confidence. So I've talked in other videos before, because this is really important, about having that guaranteed income floor to know your essentials are covered. Now, whether that's covered with Social Security, pensions, annuities in some cases, that can create that baseline income floor that's not market dependent. So when your essentials are covered from a guaranteed source, portfolio risk doesn't feel like life and death anymore. It feels like optional volatility, not, oh, the world is ending. And I've mentioned before, and I'm going to say it again, anytime the subject of annuity is brought up, I think annuities are usually oversold a lot. There's a big ocean out there. There's a lot of different products. So you need to know exactly what you're buying. But I do feel like they can be a good tool when used in the right context. And some people will have asked me, should I have this annuity? I bought this one. I'm not sure if I should have done that. Are they good to have? I think they can be good to have in the right context, but they should be bought with a specific framework in mind, not just throwing random amounts of money into annuity because it feels safe, which is what I see in a lot of cases. I'd say if you're going to use an annuity, it's what's the specific purpose of it? How much of that guaranteed income do you need to have? It should be something that's designed specifically. And I'd say once that guaranteed income floor is secured, then people can stop micromanaging their accounts, stop tracking day-to-day market moves, and stop letting financial news dictate their mood. And while we're on the whole income topic, though, I think this is where retirees can go in the wrong direction. So many retirees will realize that they need income, but then they start chasing yield. They'll start chasing high yield products like covered call ETFs, high dividend ETFs, all kinds of things of that nature, anything that looks like instant or high income. But I'd say you have to be careful with those kind of strategies. And I don't have time to break all these down. That'll be a separate video that I will make later on. But I'd say chasing yield is just the accumulation trap wearing a different costume. Because in most cases, a lot of these products, what they actually do is just end up reducing overall growth and increasing your tax drag. The income might feel good emotionally or temporarily, but it can come at the expense of long-term compounding and higher taxes today. So I'd say retirement income isn't just about trying to find the highest yield. It's about creating the most reliable, tax-efficient way to match your income to expenses over decades. And then once we have that essential layer secured, we can finally address what retirees fear the most, accessing their portfolio without feeling like every withdrawal is jeopardizing the rest of their life. So now let's talk a little bit about the systematic withdrawal strategy that can enable more confident portfolio access, because I think systematic adaptable withdrawals are key here. That's what removes a lot of the guesswork. And I don't subscribe to like a rigid 4% rule because it's not a universal answer. I know everybody wants confident, specific answers here, but one set withdrawal percentage is just too generic. There's too many variables. Income needs, tax brackets, sequence dynamics matter way more than any single static number here. And I've shown research before, I'll show it again. Javier Estrada's research on global withdrawal rates and sustainability, those tell us that withdrawals can vary widely based on when you retire. Since we don't know what market returns will be, we have to model a lot of this off of past statistics. So when you retire is going to matter. And then what portfolio mix you hold, meaning what percentage of stocks and bonds do you have? And from those, we've seen withdrawal rates ranging from 3 to 7%, just depending on the year and what's happening. So adaptability is key. And then, of course, being able to cut 10 to 20% from spending if you need to, that's what's critical. What I've seen in practice is that many will start taking a withdrawal and continue that same withdrawal every year, no matter what, not really adapt much, and then realize too late that they're now in a big hole and that the account value has dropped much, much faster than they expected it to. So whatever strategy you're using, whether it's using guardrails, having a flexible withdrawal band, you want to make sure that that's part of a process. So coordinating those withdrawals on top of the guaranteed income floor that I mentioned earlier, that can create a full cash flow structure instead of just random access. And so now that you understand systematic withdrawal planning, let's take a look at the comprehensive income first strategy, putting all these pieces together that prevents the mistake that I mentioned 750 retirees warn against. So this final piece is where everything becomes actionable. So let's sum all this up to give you something to walk away with. So a complete income first strategy means that you're beginning with a defined monthly lifestyle target. So what you actually want to live on, not what the portfolio might support. It's what do you actually want to live on? What do you actually want to do? What spending actually makes sense? And then you want to secure that guaranteed income foundation for the non-negotiable stuff, either through Social Security, pension, if you're fortunate enough to have one, or perhaps strategic use of annuities in that case. And this is highly dependent on what type of person you are. Some people just can't handle stock market risk well. So in some cases, they're going to want to guarantee a lot more portions of income. Other people say, I'd rather not give up any of my return for security. I'd rather go for more return. I don't want to do that. So that's going to vary widely based on the individual. But then after that, you want to engineer a flexible withdrawal system designed to fit your tax bracket, not random percentages or fixed legacy rules. And again, the right mix here of stocks to bonds, whether it's 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, that's critical. That's going to determine how much you're actually going to be able to withdraw every year and how long your money is going to last. But that part is going to go back to psychology as well, because not everybody can handle market swings the same. Some people can't handle it at all. Some people are totally comfortable with their accounts fluctuating a lot. You also want to make sure you're allocating across your accounts based on tax efficiency as well. Don't want to lose dollars that you don't have to extra taxes. And then lastly, you want to run this as a cycle-based, adaptable system that adjusts as life changes, not a static set and forget projection. So retirement withdrawals is something that's based on way too many variables to just be set at one flat rate, 3%, 4%, and then just let it go. Adaptation and adjustments are the most critical piece here. And so coordinating this approach properly eliminates a lot of the anxiety that we talked about earlier, because everything reduces down to one question that actually matters. Is my monthly income secure and stable for the life that I want to live? If that answer is yes, then you can stop obsessing about the number on the screen, or hopefully you can stop. I know it's hard to not check those balances, but hopefully. So you can actually start living the retirement that you worked hard for. And so now that you understand the harsh mistake that 750 retirees warn against, and how focusing on savings rather than an income and distribution strategy can create anxiety, poor decisions, you can implement income first planning that can prevent some of these costly errors. If you want help developing a comprehensive retirement plan, if you have a lot of questions about how this all works, click the link in the video below the description. It'll take you to a video on my page where I talk about my retirement process, what I focus on, how I put all the pieces together, and give you the option to book a call with me to see if we're a good fit. If I can help, happy to do it. Just let me know. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.